Okay, well, there's my dog. He's saying hello. Um, Guys, we are awfully glad that you are with us today. We are going to be talking about a variety of things, but all of them have to do with denial or the blocks to going on and that kind of stuff. And we've got a lot of things to say. It's been a very interesting week for me. One of the things I want to put on the table is we have a new app, and I keep announcing that. Hello, Lisa. I'm so glad you're here. We have a new app, and it is called the Teacup Prophecies. Thank you, dear. After our second book, after my second book, The Teacup Prophecies. It's a marvelous app. It's an oracle. And it can work like that, or it can work on all sorts of ascended messages. I think you'll like it a lot. It's 99 cents on the iPhone store, and you can get it through the App Store. However, we don't have the Droid yet, so if you've got a Droid, stand by. We'll have that up and going in a few months, okay? This week has been very interesting. It's gotten me thinking about a lot of things. And while I did a show on denial a while back and resistance and defensiveness and all that kind of stuff, life teaches us, and then we find ourselves at a later time, like now, when there's more to say. So I haven't gone mental on you thinking I have not done a show like this. It has been on denial, but this is certainly different information. My sense about this show, too, is it's going to probably veer off in a few directions, but it's always going to come back to denial because there's a lot to say. Okay, let's do a prayer, get us all on the same page, and then I'll launch off. By the way, we are live and on the air today, so our guest call-in number is 347-850-1647. If you'd like to talk to me, we have it set up to do so. All right. Let's do our prayer. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything is in this world, we are enormously grateful to be here today and talk to our friends we know and our friends we haven't met yet, about this very important subject that keeps us from you sometimes. I would say it keeps us from the awareness of you. It keeps us from knowing the whole of you. And our lives will be better, more productive and happier if we do know more. So, dear God, help us open our minds to everything that we say today together. For it is you through us, through all of us, not just through me, that can give us the information that our lives need as the next step. We ask that we know nothing, for it is you through us all that knows it all. And we thank you so much, dear God, for all of this, as we seek the truth that lies in your enlightenment. And we say this prayer in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to the show today. Thank you so much. We are glad you're with us, and so it is. Amen. 2, pardon me, I have got to get a Kleenex. Something is blooming up here, and I'm a little allergic to it, and my nose runs, and I guess you just can't disguise it when you're on the air, huh? 2 very interesting things happened this week. I had the occasion to talk to 2 people. One was a friend, and one was a client friend, because all my clients are friends too, you know. I'd like to start with this last man I just mentioned, my client friend, because I'm very, very proud of him. We've worked for months on some of the stress he was under, getting ready for what really I had to tell him on a deeper level. Until now, he wasn't really ready to take that on or see it. So I didn't actually know when this aspect of the truth came through me this time. was going to be said, but I knew I was getting ready to say it, getting him ready to hear it. And Spirit told me in our session this week, now's the time. So I took a deep breath and followed that directive. And he said, I know this is true because I want to argue with you and avoid it. So we'll get through it together. Wow. I was so proud of him. Good for him. You see, we can't really move anything until somebody says, I have it, go for it. And are really sincere about that. Because I have a lot of people saying, I have it, go for it. And they're trying to please me, or they're going to give me that much. They'll say, when they want to do that, they say, oh, I have it a little bit. Or I have this characteristic just a little bit, but I have that one. And they're not giving you the whole thing, right? It's very cute. Hello, Celine. I'm so glad to talk with you today. Okay. So I was really super proud of him. I was thrilled. Then, that same day, my lesson came. I was talking with a friend, and she asked about the work I do, and so I told her. And I was telling her particularly some things that have interested in me lately. And I did a radio show several weeks ago on the stories that we've heard as children. And they're really, honestly, many times subconscious impact on our lives as adults. And I thought she might be interested in this. All of a sudden, she got furious at me. She told me to stop attacking the childhood stories, like Cinderella. She had read the story to children, she said, hundreds of times. And it was beautiful, and how dare I analyze the psychological underpinnings of a story like that and pull it down to the unpleasant level of reality. That's in essence her reaction. Wow, I got to tell you, I didn't mean to offend her. She asked me what I did. So I told her. I thought we were just having a conversation. But she got really upset, and it took her a little while to calm down. Good for her. I was left as my first reaction, sorry, feeling that I was awfully glad she wasn't a client because there was a lot of resistance. And it takes a while to get through. I want you all to know, if you're planning to work with me or somebody else, the more resistance you have, the longer it takes to get to the real stuff. It's interesting because you can spot denial by someone's resistance to what you're saying. When you get hot, you know that somebody's standing on a nerve. It's actually a really good thing in my business because I see, sometimes I poke you a little bit to actually try to see how your reaction is. And that gives me a lot of information that ultimately can help you. But of course, this was not a client. This is slightly off the subject, but I might as well put it on the table. I thought this was so interesting. Have any of you read the book, The Alienist? I thought that was a really interesting book. I loved the book. I saw the television show, too. They did a series out of it, and it was good. I always like books better because they're a little more fleshed out. What struck me was how much psychology then, and even now, is misunderstood. If we are to believe the prevailing attitudes about psychology in 1896, when this book took place, the general public was against it because they thought that profiling criminals and the study of their backgrounds and what created them was excusing criminal behavior. Of course, we know that isn't true now with everything that we're exposed to. But I think the false assumptions about human psychology then and now serve us in a different way. It gives us excuses to deny what we should be looking at and learning from so we can be better and more loving people. It denies our individual contribution to improving society by making it a better place to live, you know? Okay. But back to the story that prompted all this. Because I am not here to analyze a friend. Okay, she's a friend. What I'm here to say is we are entitled to believe what we all believe. I'm only here for you guys that want to believe some of the things that I'm espousing. That's all. And what got me in trouble with her was this. I absolutely love what I do and I find it fascinating, and I'll jump in there and talk to anybody that even halfway gives me an opportunity to do so. And number two, I was still in the role of teacher when I should have been in the role of friend. We play a lot of roles in life. We are possibly a wife, a mother, a husband, a son, a father, a business person, a community team member, a neighbor, a student, and a lot more. So all of this got me thinking. I think we all need to be more aware of the roles we play and when to step into them and out of them. So I thought I'd talk about denial, but start this lesson with something that I learned that I think will make all of our lives better. In my classes, there's generally speaking a small problem with beginning students. They get so excited about the psychology they're learning that they want to analyze their friends and their family and their fellow students. Now, I think observation is a wonderful thing, but until you get the ego child's mind out of it, analyzation can be very intrusive and uninvited, and you cease to be in the role of friend when you're analyzing. That was my problem. I ceased to be in the role of friend. I started not analyzing her, but getting too close to something that she didn't want me touching. Mm-hmm. When we're in the egoic child's mind, analyzing also, talking about classes, carries judgment and a certain narcissism. I mean, after all, there's an element of you have this problem, we're implying in our classes, and I'm a better person than you are for seeing it. I don't think that's what any of us want to say to anybody else in our heart or hearts, but we're saying it until we realize that we're saying it. We can't deny it, because if you do, you won't learn from what you're doing and you'll do it all over again. That's the importance of looking at things. In my opinion, friendship, connection with people is absolutely a wonderful thing. To be a friend, we need to listen, not preach, not teach, not impose our ideas, not show how smart we are and make ourselves more than we are. We just need to listen. Connecting with people is a lot simpler than we sometimes make it. Only last night, my dear husband, sorry about the dog bark, only last night my dear husband pointed out that I have a hard time coming out of the teacher mode from time to time. In truth, I've probably been working too hard. We talked about this morning. I've been working too hard, not taking enough me time. And this kind of imbalance certainly exacerbates the problem. Michael said that he loves me just for me, not for what I know or what I produce, although I'm sure he can respect these things. He reminded me that I often have not dropped the teacher role when I interact even with him. And he's right. He's right. I apologized. And I'll certainly be more of the role of the roles that I'm playing as I go forward, and when they begin and when they end. You know, I think all of us come face to face sometimes with just the fact that we need to be more aware and tighten up what we're doing. So I'm asking all of us to learn from my example and be aware of the roles we're playing and when they begin and when they end. When to be one thing and when to be another. And I think it's important to say that we must be committed and honest to the current role that we're in and do what is required of us, always remembering that a role is not the whole of us, but only a role, and a small but essential part in the scheme of things, because there are a lot of roles. But we're who we are essentially in our being, not in our role. Okay. Well, I did warn you that I would be diverging from from the subject of denial. But let me get back to it right now. Okay? There are two ways to recognize that you're denying something. And before we get to those, have you ever asked yourself what you're denying when you are denying something? I think that's a really important question. What are you denying when you deny? Number one, you're denying learning and growth. You've got to see what you're doing before you can learn from it and grow out of it, not do it again. Okay? Number two, you're denying being a more loving person, because when something bothers you, there is some stuck energy in fear, and fear is the opposite of love. So you're actually going in the opposite direction from where your energies, your higher self, are wanting you to go. Number three, your sense of self as the aspect of the loving and living God you are is denied. So the more we deny aspects of ourselves, the more we say, where is God? I don't know God. God's never been there for me. He's there maybe for other people, but I don't have a sense of it. Number four, you're denying anyone knowing the real, authentic you. And most importantly, you are denying self-knowledge. 5, by denying that, you are in the egoic mind where fear and pride, jealousy, and by the way, self-attack live. You're giving yourself over to the lesser characteristics of your personality, and that's a shame, because you're so much more than that. We all are. And number 6, by denying aspects of yourself, you trap yourself in a little cage, and you are incapable of moving forward and expanding and creating something wonderful with freer energies and much, much more. I'm just hitting the highlights right now. Now, there are 2 ways to recognize you're denying something. Let's go back to that. One is you feel something uncomfortable when you're denying something. You're going to feel anxiety, fear, rage, and so on. All emotions of the egoic child's mind, and they're a wonderful signal to you that there's something to look at. Now, with people that do this, a lot of times they don't even know what's going on. They feel these things. They are not going to open that door to ask why. That's denial. Okay? So they never learn anything more. Guys, this is how you get old. This is how you get old in your mind. You don't learn anything new. You don't learn about yourself. You're not challenged to come out of your fear. You don't see that you love fantasy above reality. You never learn. You see? Gosh, I'm not just talking about you. I'm talking about me too. We are all given the opportunities to see what we're doing so our lives can be more loving and happier and brighter. So, you feel something uncomfortable. That's the first signal. So you have to be aware you're feeling something and that it is a signpost. I often say that emotion's just a signpost. It isn't there to hurt you. It's not going to last forever, although there's a biological reason why you think it is. Because before you're 18 months old, and 18 months old is where the ego pretty much forms, and the ego child's mind comes right along with it. Before that period of time, to the baby, all time is now. They're like little animals. All time is now. If I say to my dog, I'm not going to walk you right now, but I will in 10 minutes, what does that mean? The only thing he hears is, we're not going to go now. The answer is no. You see? So children are like that. Little babies are like that. All time is now. So if they are hurting or uncomfortable, or they're experiencing some sort of emotion that gets unresolved, they say, this is the way it's going to be forever. And a life pattern is formed of thinking that this is the way it's going to be forever. And that's why in the finest households, we still grow up afraid. We still grow up with issues, you see? There's another way that we can recognize we're denying something. And that is, you get defensive. And defensiveness is showing you, if you look below the surface now, that you agree with the other person, but you're not yet ready to admit it to yourself for whatever reason. And a lot of times when I see someone being very defensive, if I'm trying to help them, I've got to find out what that's all about and remove that. We have to work on that. You know, we have to make ourselves ready to do the deeper work. You see? Many times, a lot of my time is spent getting someone ready to hear some sort of truth about what they're doing. One just can't go around blurting out everything one knows before some people are ready to hear it. That's what got me in trouble with my friend. I was not a friend. I was telling her advanced material. She didn't want to hear it. That's all right. We have to realize that's all right. It's what makes the world go around. And I think what gets us in trouble, at least what got me in trouble, was that I was in the wrong role. Okay. Back to the subject of denial. So if life is so darn great on the other side of resistance and denial, and that's really what all these radio shows and Facebook Live shows are about. That's what my book is about. That's what, all my CDs are about, and the DVDs that you can find on the website are about. If life is so darn good, why the heck do we deny and resist? Because once you realize what you're doing, if you let that information come in, you would have a choice to do one of two things. Number one, you might have to change. Now, for the egoic child's mind, change is really frightening. The egoic child's mind has created a structure in which to feel safe. I always say it's like a fortress on a hill, right? And here, you ask me to come along, and I take a wrecking ball to that structure. And what the ego does is it quickly rebuilds with whatever materials are left. I'll take away the logs and the mortar and the whatever I've knocked down. That comes with me. But then the ego quickly rebuilds its egoic structure. So it can keep that egoic child's mind that is there to explain life according to appearances. But every week, here comes the wrecking ball, and they take away a little more and a little more and more. And each time you rebuild until you don't need to do that anymore, until you're ready to let it go. It doesn't happen overnight. That's why we call this method the Burgess process. But it's a marvelous process, and I think all of us that have been doing this will tell you that life is so much better. So the ego child's mind, the ego, creates a structure in which you feel safe. It's very limited, of course, because it's what the child thought about life. And by the way, you can be the most marvelous adult in the world and have your businesses and everything, and you are still doing this if you haven't addressed these things, because that's the way life is. We do it until we don't, and we make changes. Safety is a really important thing to the child. After all, a child's main goal is to survive. But as we age, we find that surviving isn't enough. It doesn't make us happy. And the egoic child's mind is there to keep your limitations, because it just wants you to survive. It doesn't care if you're happy, you see? That never occurred to it. So we find all sorts of little ways that actually pull down life to make us happy. Okay, we'll talk about some of those in a little while. All sorts of devices, a myriad of them. But that's at the expense of making our whole lives happy. So if we're stuck in the old system of trying to survive and working exclusively, or almost exclusively, from the ego child's mind, I say often we have one leg in the new and one leg in the ego child's mind, right? If we're doing that, we're not using our energies to create the life we want. You're either trying to survive or you're creating something wonderful and life-enhancing. One of the things I think it's important to learn is that change is good, that we are all safe in change, that it isn't the same as in our early childhood home. The change is just the movement of a God of love, and that loves you. That all things work together for our good in this energy. That God is there for us in all times, because the child's mind thinks that God is there in only the good times when things are pleasing and feel good, and not there in the bad times. We've got to learn a bigger God than that, who is living and there in the chaos and the order. And that we must finally learn that we have nothing to fear as long as we make ourselves cooperative with these higher energies of God. I think it's important probably to say right now, for those of you that might be new to me, that one of the things that confuses all of us about God is that God is everything. Everything. It is fear-based energies, because this is according to our understanding as the ego child's mind, right? It is fear-based energies, and it is love-based energies, which is the highest self, the bigger mind, the global mind. The ego child's mind tends to narrow its focus to what's wrong or fantasize, which isn't reality. And the only way we have happy lives is to live in full reality and understand everything and how God works and create a wonderful life for ourselves. Pray for the world, that everyone opens to more. Oh my, sorry about that. Now, this thing that all right, Toffel, stop it. Stop it now. Hey! excuse me, I have to be mama dog. And that's the only way he stops. And then again, I was just about to say, and then again, he's going to have the last word. What we're talking about right now is the part of you that requires all the work, making ourselves cooperative with this energy. We can't trust this energy until we ourselves make ourselves cooperative with it. Isn't that the conundrum here? We have to be cooperative with it to see it and to realize the full use and glory of this great opportunity. I want to say that you may not know how important this is to your life right now, but it is vitally important to your well-being, because when the vicissitudes of life do happen, when something happens to the people you love, or to you, and to all them, and when the major life changes that are part of every life happen, it's nice to know that there's a perfection to it, even if you can't see it. And the more you go into consciousness, the more you realize there's a perfection to it all. You believe that everything will eventually work out one way or another, and working out is something much bigger than what the ego child's mind thinks it is. That everything does indeed go for your good. You'll learn, and you give it to God and cooperate with change and growth, and yes, guess where the opportunities are? Inherent in that change and in that growth. That's the only place the opportunities are. So that's one of the things that you do with the energy of change. That's a choice you have, but you have another choice as well. Once you see what you're doing, you can hold on to that egoic structure with a vengeance, and you can turn against yourself in doing so. You can remain uncooperative because of something as childlike as your fear. You can amp up your uncooperativeness and your defensiveness even more. But I'm going to tell you, you're already exhausted from doing that. So it's a big effort for you to continue it, and continue it with a vengeance, because you've already heard the truth. It's giving you a lesser life. And this is just not going to make you happy, because the movement of God is about growth, change, and opportunity. That's what it's about. Learning, loving more. So why not realize you have to change? Why not realize that growth is good, and that becoming more loving, more forgiving, more open to living and let living will do nothing but make you happier? Why not drop the pretense? Why not drop the pride? False pride, by the way. You can have a pride that's just knowing you're doing the best you can with what you've got today. There's nothing wrong with a pride like that. But the egoic pride tells us we are right and everybody else is wrong. It tells us we have the only way of doing things, and that nobody else's way is any damn good. So let's talk for a moment about what you can do to change, if that's your choice, all right? The first is you have to confront your denial and your resistance and your anxiety. Some of us even have OCD and don't react to that, because all of us have OCD to a lot or a little extent. Everybody has it. And we might as well stop trying to hide it, because everybody sees everything that we are. Honestly. For anybody who wants to look, it's just right there. And the interesting thing is if you don't look, you stay on the surface, and where's the growth and the change and the opportunity in that? Nothing gets to go deeper, you see? So I want to put on the table that if you recognize you have some OCD, you've developed it as a response to your fear of things changing and your feelings of a loss of control. So there are two ways to tell if you have OCD. Even, again, these will work whether you have a lot of it or a little of it. Number one, change things and observe whether you have any anxiety from changing things. And if you do, just get some help for this. There are many fine ways to soothe yourself, and you've only learned one of them. To excessively clean or to excessively do it your way, which you tell yourself is the only right way to do it. But you see, this kind of inflexibility makes you unhappy with life, right? Okay. So every time, here's the danger of it. Every time you use the old system, yeah, you get a momentary soothing. But here's how it works against you. By your using the old system, you become more anxious. So you have to soothe yourself again this way. Everything becomes more entrenched every time you use it. There's another way to spot OCD. And I think this is so cute. And to explain this, I want to tell you about a dear client of mine several years ago. He came in and he was furious at his wife for something or other. And he walked into my office and he said, with a great deal of energy, "I should have a wife that supports me." We had been studying OCD in him. And he stopped. I just watched this because I love working with people like this that are their own therapists. It makes it much easier for me, right? So he stopped and he went, "Oh, I am OCD. It's the goddamn it after that sentence that was my subtext that tells me how stuck I am." And I just thought that was so dear, and I've used that ever since. So that's another way to tell. Do you have a goddamn it after your statement, you know? Okay. I do have another piece of advice for you, and that is to go back and listen to my other lectures on Blog Talk Radio and Facebook Live. So many of our subjects are about the different aspects of non-acceptance of self and denial and resistance to what we're talking about now. For example, how are you going to face your denial if you are emotionally immature? First things first, one must be willing to investigate one's emotional maturity before one can be emotionally mature and cease denying, right? First things first. And to be emotionally mature, one has to have a certain amount of emotional fluidity. And emotional intelligence is what I'm talking about. And to have this, you have to confront the childlike misunderstandings you have about emotion and learn something else. That it's only a signpost asking you to look deeper and adjust something. But you see, we use all this. I'm sorry about the dog. Really, I am. We use all this as a self-attack. All right, hang on a minute. Tuffle! Geez, I'm sorry about this. I don't know why he is not where he should be today. So that you hear the barking only in the distance. But right now, you're hearing it way too much. There is a squirrel on our porch. And Toffel just thinks that squirrel is the worst intruder in the world. And thank God that it's only that, a squirrel on the porch. So I want to go back to what we're talking about right now. To be emotionally mature, one has to have a certain amount of emotional fluidity and emotional intelligence. And to have this, one must confront the childlike misunderstandings you have about emotion and learn something else. But what I was about to say about this is we use things as self-attacks. Here's the problem. Here's the problem. If you, let's say, are needing to be right all the time and needing to control everything, anybody who doesn't do it your way, you interpret as telling you you're wrong. And because of this fear you don't even remember that is innate in you, you can't hear that. You can't hear that. That is way too close to the truth. Now, here's what I'm putting on the table. What's wrong with being wrong? Does it make you less of a person? If so, we need to do some work on you. It doesn't make you any less of a person. You're just wrong. So what? Okay? We're all wrong as human beings, and we're all right as human beings some of the time. For heaven's sakes, we need to get over these childlike strangleholds on ourselves. Give ourselves more freedom. And to do that, knowledge is power. You got to learn more about yourself and how you're wired and why you do things. It's a fascinating journey. And we're never ceasing to learn. I told you in the beginning, before we even started all of this, that I had a very big learning week for me about the roles that I play and when it's appropriate to play one and when it's not. It's very important that we're not afraid. And we are. It's what motivates us most of the time until we start this journey to consciousness. And then we have one leg in and one leg out of the higher self. And then through the years on work on ourselves, we bring ourselves to know more. And there's much more peace there. When you're afraid, you deny what you're afraid of. And this is energy. It's the energy that belongs in your life. It's energy that is unusable if you deny it. We put it in a little box. We put it on the shelf. We don't want to look at it. We're avoiding it, right? But it's energy that should go back to our lives so that we can create what we want, so we can have a lot of dynamism, so we can be whatever the potential is that we are. And in that, our own lovely force of nature. There's not one of you that was standing behind the door when God gave this out. All of you have this. And all of you have the right to this. But we've got to say, you know, the fear that I feel is not going to stop me. The people that I blame for stopping me, they're not going to stop me. Nobody's going to stop me except me. And I hope you won't let that happen. Here's what I want to put on the table as a last thought to you. God is everything. And because God is everything, you are everything because God is all you are. It is according to your understanding now, whether you're in the low energies of God or the high energies of God, but all God. It's not good to keep knowledge and awareness from yourself. Because the path to consciousness, which will truly make you happy, is through a triad. Awareness, consciousness, and that leads to enlightenment. If you defy knowing, if you deny knowing anything, if you deny being aware of everything, whether it hurts or not, and you don't look at those things, you can't resolve those things, and you can't realize what love really is, and you have the opportunity to know so much more We all do. But we have to be cooperative with the learning, cooperative with the growing, and cooperative with the opportunities. Everything that the ego child's mind puts forth is an excuse. And I love working with people because eventually they get to the place and I say, well, give me a good reason why not. Why you can't move, why you can't grow, why you can't accept, why you can't do this, why you can't do that. And every single one of my darling clients at one point stop and say, I can't think of anything but excuses. How can you not love that? Because they realize they're just excuses. They're just not true. They're just excuses. These beliefs serve because it's a good excuse. Dear ones, I want you to have happy lives. I want you to get on with things. I want us to face anything about ourselves. I think it's, hi, Jim. I think it's real easy for us to say we're above it all. We're not above anything. We're down there in the trenches. The trenches are just one of the places that we go from time to time. I made a mistake this week with my friend. She's entitled to believe whatever she wants to believe. She's not my client. If you're my client, I'm going after you, right? But she's not. And when she got over being angry with me, and I didn't apologize because, you know, I wanted to tell her. She asked me to tell her what I do, you know. I don't think either one of us needed to apologize to the other. But I was glad that that moment passed and we got back to enjoying the beautiful day. I wish all of you well, wherever you are in your process. You know, we're all doing the best we can with what we know. So my loving advice to you is do no more. Go after it. Don't let your fear dictate your life. Push past it. Please. Now, that's the end of our show. I appreciate so much your listening today. We'll be back next week with another show. I am going to take some time off later on in the summer because I think I need a break. But we'll be here next week with another show. And it's always 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Sundays, Facebook Live and Blog Talk Radio. If you'd like to be on our mailing list, please send me your email. You can find how to reach me on my website, which is Martha Burgess, Burgess, Novak, Novak, .net. I am a .net, not a .com. Don't forget our app. On that website, by the way, there are just some wonderful resources for you in your study of consciousness. And I just can't tell you how important it is. If I were you, I would start, there are like 100 shows mounted on everything. If I were you all, I would start some sort of study group because you need people around you that support this level of consciousness and what you are trying to do. Go from fear to love, which we're all trying to do. Okay. So I recommend all those things and more. And I wish you all the best. Hi, Kat. Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate all of you very much. Let's do a prayer. Get us all on the same page now as we go out in our lives and actually try to use some of this stuff, right? Because it isn't just the hearing it. It isn't just the feeling that it's right or not right. You have your choice. But it is whether it's right for you and whether you'll use it. Thank you, Lisa. Let's do a prayer. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything is in the world, we thank you so much for all of this. We open ourselves now to surrender whatever we can of our old structure, our old egoic child's mind structure, that we may know a deeper level of you as who we are, as the living and loving God that is pertinent in our lives right now and in this very minute and all minutes. We thank you so much for knowing that every single thing we've done, decision we've made, reflects our consciousness at the time. And thank you for the opportunity to know that there's always someplace else, more loving and full of life, to go. That's our potential. We thank you so much, dear God, for all of this. And now we say, we surrender our issues, blocks, needs to hold on to these things, vestiges and related issues, identities, over-identities, sympathies, over-sympathies, definitions of self, roles we played that no longer serve us. We surrender as much of any structure we can have that we will let you have. Our egoic structure in any sort of ways, our defenses, our entrenchments of our defenses, our life patterns, and our repetitions of some of the things we'd like to lose in our lives. We open our hearts to self-acceptance because we need all that energy back, crossing that threshold from fear to love, that we may have more to give ourselves and all the people we love, and honestly, this world, because it needs the light that each of you carry within you. It was always there. Now you're just coming out of some of the old falsehoods and mythologies and out lies we've told ourselves as children, to see something bigger and better and more glorious and more loving. Thank you so much for all of this, dear God. And we say this prayer now in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every one of you listening to this show. And thank you so much for communicating with me. It means the world, and so it is. Amen. If you've enjoyed this show or others, please mount them and post them and send them around. I believe on Blog Talk Radio there's a little box that connects you with your social media, and it's wonderful for you to get these things around. You know, I think I'm always trying to reach out for the people that are interested in the show, my philosophy, and I think one of the things that got me into trouble is tell everybody. And some people will turn away from it and some people will accept it. So my unawareness is tell everybody, I guess, is what got me in trouble this week. So anyway, it's what it is. You guys have a great week and enjoy yourselves thoroughly. And life is better and better the more you will come out of that ego child's mind that tells you it's not. I wish that for you. All right, guys. See you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.